Hello, and welcome to the Snoozy Scientist, where we explore life's deepest mysteries, one sleepy yawn at a time. For as long as humans have gazed up at the night sky, we've seen the same familiar face, the moon, staring back at us, but half its story remains hidden, turned forever away in the shadows. For centuries, people have wondered what could be hiding in that dark corner. Could it be lost craters, ancient scars, forgotten water, or maybe even cosmic whispers we've yet to hear? But before we wander too far, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop a comment and tell me what time it is as you're winding down. And if these soft rambles help you drift off to dreamland, please tap like and consider subscribing. It keeps this snoozy corner of the internet alive, and it means so much to have you here. Now, take a deep breath, pull your blanket close, and let's float together to the quiet, hidden side of the moon. On nights when the world feels too busy, or your mind won't slow down, there is one gentle friend that has always been there, waiting patiently above us all. The moon, hanging quietly in the sky, has watched over every generation that has ever looked up in wonder. It is our oldest companion, drifting through the darkness like a soft lantern, guiding our thoughts home. When you stand under a clear night sky, take a moment to notice how the moon seems to follow you. Whether you are in a big city with glowing streetlights, or out in the countryside where stars sprinkle every inch of the sky, that same face looks back at you. It is round and familiar, with shadows and light dancing across its surface. People have given names to these darker patches, the seas or Maria, even though they hold no water, only old volcanic plains frozen in time. For thousands of years, people have read stories in those shadows. Some see a rabbit pounding rice, others see the face of a man watching over us. No matter where you are from, the moon has whispered tales to your ancestors, stories that have been carried through time like lullabies for the earth. Long before we had glowing screens or streetlights, the moon was the brightest light we knew. It lit the way for travelers walking lonely roads. Sailors used it to find their bearings on the open sea when the stars alone were not enough. Farmers looked to its phases to plant and harvest, believing the pull of its light could shape their crops just as it shapes the tides. Poets and dreamers found comfort in its steady glow, a reminder that no matter how lost they felt, there was something constant watching over them. You can almost picture it now, a quiet village hundreds of years ago, with people gathered around a small fire, glancing up at that glowing circle in the sky. Maybe they told each other stories of gods who lived on the moon's surface, or spirits who guided their loved ones across the night. Maybe a child would look up and wonder what it might feel like to stand there, looking back at Earth. Even then, they must have felt the pull of that hidden half, the side turned forever away. As the centuries passed, we began to understand more about our lunar companion. Scientists drew careful maps, marking each crater and plane they could see through their telescopes. They watched the moon's cycle, new, waxing, full, waning, and wondered what secrets it still kept from us. They realized its pull keeps our oceans in motion and even steadies the Earth's spin. Without the moon, our nights would be darker and our days less certain. Still, even with all our knowledge, the moon keeps its secrets close. No matter how bright it shines, half of its face stays hidden from view. It turns with us but never turns fully toward us, locked in a silent dance that has lasted for billions of years. This gentle trick of physics, tidal locking, means that the same craters and plains greet our eyes every night, while the far side remains out of reach. But maybe that is what makes it so special. The moon is a reminder that even when we feel we know something completely, there is always more to wonder about. Just like the travelers who walked by its light, we still find ourselves guided by its gentle glow. Just like the poets who scribbled verses by moonlight, we feel our minds drift into dreams when we stare up at that silver face. And just like the ancient storytellers who filled the darkness with tales, we find comfort in imagining what might wait beyond our sight. Tonight, as you lie back and let sleep come closer, imagine you are standing outside under a soft blanket of stars. The air is cool and the world is quiet. Above you, the moon glows with a light that has touched every person who has ever lived. Think of all those who have looked up and felt a little less alone. Think of the secrets it still holds, the mysteries tucked away on the far side, waiting for curious dreamers like you to drift closer. It is no wonder the moon has become our symbol for things we can never fully reach. It reminds us to keep looking up, to keep wondering, and to trust that some secrets are worth drifting toward, even if they stay hidden in the shadows. So take a slow breath, feel the calm settle around you, and know that this familiar face above us is always there, patient and unchanging, keeping watch as you drift off into the dark and dreamy night. Have you ever wondered why we always see the same side of the moon? Night after night, it looks back at us with that same familiar face, as if it chose to turn one cheek to us forever and keep the other hidden away. This strange little secret is not just magic, it is a beautiful piece of nature called tidal locking, and once you understand it, the moon feels even more special. Long ago, when the moon was much younger, things were not so still. In the very beginning, our moon spun much faster than it does now. Its days were shorter, and its surface turned freely, showing different sides to the earth below. But the pull of gravity, quiet and steady, started to change that dance. Gravity is always at work, pulling and tugging between objects, even when we cannot see it happening. The Earth's gravity pulls on the moon, and the moon's gravity pulls back on Earth. You might have felt the moon's power if you have ever watched ocean waves rolling in and out on a beach. Those tides rise and fall because of the moon's invisible pull. Over millions and millions of years, this gentle tug did something amazing. The Earth's gravity began to slow down the moon's spin. Little by little, the moon's rotation slowed until it matched the time it takes to orbit around Earth. This means it now spins exactly once for every full trip it makes around our planet. It is as if the moon is spinning and traveling in perfect harmony with us. Because of this, we always see the same side, the near side, and the other side stays hidden. It is still there, of course, turning through space like the rest of the moon, but it never turns toward us. Instead, it faces out into the stars, carrying its secrets in quiet shadow. This kind of dance is called tidal locking, and it is not just something the moon does. Many moons in our solar system are tidally locked to their planets. For example, Pluto and its moon Charon are locked together so perfectly that they both always show the same side to each other. It is like a slow waltz frozen in time. Tidal locking happens because of tiny differences in how gravity pulls on different parts of the moon. The side of the moon that is closer to Earth feels a stronger pull than the far side. This causes the moon to stretch ever so slightly, creating something called a tidal bulge. This bulge is tiny, but over millions of years it acts like a brake, slowing the spin until it matches the orbit. You can imagine it by thinking of an ice skater spinning on the ice. When they stretch out their arms, they spin more slowly. When they pull their arms in close, they spin faster. Gravity does something similar to the moon, pulling and shaping it until its spin slows just right. Even now, the moon is not perfectly still. It gently rocks back and forth in a tiny movement called libration. This means that if you watch carefully, you can actually see about 59% of the moon's surface over time, just a little more than half, but the rest, that hidden far side, stays out of sight for anyone standing on Earth. It is amazing to think that all of this is happening in silence above our heads. There is no engine turning the moon like a machine. There is no sound as gravity tugs and pulls. It is simply the quiet force of nature doing its work, slowly but surely shaping the moon's path through the sky. Because of tidal locking, ancient people could grow used to the moon's comforting face. They knew where its shadows would fall and how its features would glow through each phase. They did not know the science, but they felt the pattern and found peace in its steady light. It made the night feel a little less lonely, and today, even though we have sent spacecraft to the far side and seen what it looks like, there is still something magical about standing outside at night and staring up at the side that always greets us. It feels loyal, almost like an old friend who never turns away. The moon reminds us that even the universe has rhythms and dances that play out in ways we can understand, if only we take the time to wonder. So next time you look up at the moon, remember that it is locked in place by a gentle force that has been working for billions of years. Think about how gravity holds us all together: the Earth, the moon, the tides, and even our dreams. As you drift to sleep, know that somewhere above you, the moon is still turning with us, always showing its familiar face, while its far side keeps its mysteries waiting for the dreamers who wish to find them. Ancient wonderings, long before telescopes or rockets or astronauts in shiny suits, people sat under the same wide night sky and stared up at that bright silver circle. They did not have science books to explain how the moon moves or why it keeps one side hidden. They had only their eyes, their imaginations, and the stories they passed down from generation to generation. And so they wondered, as you might wonder tonight, what lies beyond that silver face. Picture a small village, hundreds or even thousands of years ago. The air is cool and still. A fire crackles as families gather close, and above them the moon glows like a lantern, lighting up the darkness. No matter how many nights pass, the moon's face never changes. Its dark patches and pale plains are always the same. But they knew that just out of sight was a place they could never see, and that made the hidden half feel like a doorway to another world. Across every continent, people made up stories to explain what might be up there in the shadows. In parts of Asia, people spoke of the moon rabbit. They looked at the darker spots on the moon and saw the shape of a rabbit pounding rice cakes with a wooden mallet. Some said this magical rabbit lived there to guard an elixir of life. Others believed it was a helper to the moon goddess, forever watching over the earth below. In parts of Africa, storytellers spoke of spirits who crossed between our world and the next, using the moon as a bridge. They imagined the far side as a place where ancestors might live, safe and close, yet hidden from everyday sight. When people felt lonely or lost, they would look up at the moon and feel that their loved ones were not so far away after all. In Europe, people often pictured a man in the moon. They saw a face in the shadows, maybe holding a bundle of sticks or carrying a lantern. Some legends said he was banished there for stealing from a neighbor or for working on the Sabbath. Others said he was simply watching over us, a gentle figure reminding people to keep to their promises and live kindly. But even then, they wondered, what was he standing on? What was behind him on the side they could not see? In many Native American stories, the moon was more than just a light in the sky. It was alive, moving with its own spirit. Tribes spoke of the moon's power to guide animals, control the seasons, and keep the balance of nature. The hidden half was a sacred mystery, a reminder that not everything was meant to be seen. Some things belonged to the world of dreams. And then there were those who believed that the far side might hold danger too. In some old stories, The moon's hidden face was where monsters lurked, waiting to slip down to Earth on moonless nights. These tales made children shiver by the fire, but they also gave them a reason to respect the night. Darkness was not just empty, it was a place full of secrets. In other places, the moon was seen as a lover, separated from the sun. By day, the sun shone bright and strong, ruling the sky. At night, the moon would rise, carrying soft, reflected light. Some people said that the far side of the moon was the part closest to the sun. A side burned bright and golden, hidden from our eyes because it was too sacred to see. All these legends and old stories grew from the same simple truth. The moon keeps half its face hidden. People knew they would never reach it by walking or sailing or climbing, so they reached for it with their minds instead, building bridges of imagination to cross that dark divide. In a way, these ancient wonderings were their own kind of science, an early attempt to understand something big and beautiful. Even now, when we have sent probes and cameras to see what is there, the old myths still hold a special place. We know that the far side is rough and cratered, not covered with cities of spirits or palaces of moon gods, but the mystery remains because it reminds us of something deep inside us all, the need to wonder, to dream, and to tell stories about the places just beyond our reach. So tonight, as you lie back and watch the moon through your window, think of all those who have stared at it before you. Think of the children who listened to tales of rabbits and spirits. Think of the storytellers who spoke of lost lovers and hidden worlds. The moon's hidden half may be silent, but it still speaks to the part of us that wants to believe there is always more waiting to be found. And maybe, just maybe, in our dreams, we get to walk there too. When you look up at the moon on a quiet night, it is easy to imagine it as more than just a ball of rock floating in the sky. The way its light softens the darkness and the way its face never changes makes it feel alive, like an old friend keeping watch. Long before we knew about craters or lava plains or tidal locking, people around the world looked at the moon and saw stories hidden in its light and shadows, and many of those stories came from wondering what might live on the side we can never see. In many cultures, the moon is not just an object, but a spirit, a god, or a guardian. The dark spots and pale patches become shapes that feel familiar. When people could not explain why the moon keeps part of itself hidden, they filled that empty space with dreams. The far side became a canvas for hopes, fears, and wishes. It was a place where anything might exist, safe from human eyes. In China and other parts of East Asia, one of the most famous stories is the legend of the moon rabbit. If you look closely at the full moon, you might see what looks like the outline of a rabbit sitting under a tree or pounding something with its paws. Some people believe this rabbit lives on the moon to make an elixir of immortality for the moon goddess, Chang'e. According to old tales, Chang'e drank a magic potion and floated up to the moon, where she lives forever with her loyal rabbit. When people see the moon glowing bright during festivals like the Mid-Autumn Festival, they share mooncakes and tell the story of Chang'e and her rabbit living quietly on the hidden side, working under the starlight. In parts of Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, similar rabbit stories appear, though the rabbit may be seen pounding rice into rice cakes instead of mixing a magic potion. It is comforting to imagine this small creature living up there, busy at work while the world sleeps below. It makes the moon feel warm and friendly, less cold and empty. In some Native American traditions, the moon is seen as a powerful spirit. The Cree people, for example, speak of the moon as a grandmother's spirit watching over her grandchildren on Earth. She brings calm and balance to nature. Some stories say that the far side of the moon is her secret garden, a place where the spirits of animals and people rest until they are ready to return. The shadows become doorways between our world and the next. In Africa, stories weave the moon into tales of trickster spirits and ancient gods. Among the San people, there is a legend of a clever hare who was sent by the moon to Earth to deliver the message of eternal life. But the hare got the message wrong, telling humans they would die forever. Angered, the moon struck the hare's lip, splitting it, which is why hares today have a cleft lip. Some say the hare was then sent to live on the moon as punishment. On clear nights, they see its shape there, watching over the Earth from its quiet prison. In Europe, people often talk about the man in the moon. They look at the shadows and imagine a man carrying sticks or a lantern, banished to the moon for stealing or for working when he should have rested. Some versions say he watches over people to remind them to be honest. The far side, they say, is where he keeps his secrets, a place only he can walk. Even in ancient Hindu stories, the moon is a god named Chandra, riding across the sky in a shining chariot drawn by antelope or horses. He is a symbol of time and a source of cool, calming light. The far side becomes part of the divine realm, a place where gods rest and dream. These stories, told and retold by firesides and under starry skies, feed our sense of wonder. They remind us that the moon is not just a cold rock in space, but something bigger, a mirror for our hopes and fears. The hidden half becomes a space for mystery to live on. It lets us imagine that even in a world full of science and facts, there are still corners we do not fully understand. Some people today might say these are just fairy tales, but the truth is that stories keep us connected to the sky. They help us feel that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. They remind us that our curiosity is a gift, a spark that has burned since the first people sat together and asked, "What is that glowing light, and what might it be hiding?" So next time you see the moon peeking through your window, let yourself drift back into those old tales. Picture the rabbit mixing its potion, the grandmother's spirit tending her garden, the man carrying his bundle of sticks. Imagine that the far side, the side you cannot see, is alive with dreams and whispers, waiting for someone brave enough to wonder. And as you drift to sleep, let the moon's soft glow carry you there, to the far side where mystery never fades. Long before we sent rockets into the sky or built great observatories to study the stars, people were already wondering what the moon was made of and what secrets it might be hiding. Back then, science looked very different from what we know today. There were no powerful telescopes to reveal every crater and mountain. There were no satellites to fly above the hidden side and snap pictures. Instead, there were careful eyes, curious minds, and questions that led people to guess at the unseen half of our closest neighbor in space. If you could step back hundreds or even thousands of years, you would find ancient astronomers watching the moon with nothing more than their eyes, or perhaps a simple piece of glass. They sketched its changing shape in notebooks and scratched its phases into stone. They noticed that the moon always showed the same face, never spinning fully around for Earth to see. This made them wonder what could be on the side that never greeted their gaze. In ancient Greece, some of the first written records of people trying to understand the moon come from philosophers like Anaxagoras. He lived more than 2,000 years ago and was among the first to suggest that the moon was not a god or a lamp in the sky, but a rocky world that reflected sunlight. For his time, this was a bold idea. Anaxagoras could not see the far side, of course, but he imagined it must look much the same, dry, dusty, and marked by mountains and valleys, just like the side he could see. Later, Aristotle took his turn to study the moon. He looked at the shadows on its surface and saw how they moved as the moon's phases changed. He guessed that these shadows were caused by the moon's rough landscape. But Aristotle, like Anaxagoras, still had to wonder what the far side looked like. He pictured it as a place much like the near side, rugged and silent, hidden away from human eyes. Without tools to prove it, these early thinkers relied on logic and imagination to fill in the gaps. Over in China, stargazers recorded the moon's behavior for centuries. They carefully noted eclipses, phases, and the paths of stars around it. They believed the moon's bright side held the yin energy, gentle and soft, while the unseen dark side held the yang, strong and hidden. They thought the balance between light and dark kept the universe steady. Some Chinese scholars wrote that the far side was a place of hidden forces, maybe even spirits that helped guide the moon's dance through the sky. Medieval scholars in the Middle East were also deeply fascinated by the moon. Astronomers like Alhazen, known in Latin as Alhazen, wrote books about how light and shadow worked. He knew that the moon's glow came from the sun's reflection, and that the same face always looked back at Earth. He guessed that the hidden side was probably just as rough and dusty as the one we can see. But without a way to look beyond that bright curve, all they could do was imagine. When the first simple telescopes were invented in the early 1600s, the moon's secrets started to come into sharper focus. Galileo Galilei was one of the first to point a telescope at the moon and draw what he saw. Through his lens, he noticed craters and mountains that proved the moon was not a smooth, perfect sphere. He even drew careful maps of the near side. Still, even Galileo could not peek around to the far side. He must have looked at the moon and wondered if the hidden half was covered in the same scars and plains, or if it was something completely different. Over time, astronomers built bigger and better telescopes. They marked each crater they could see and gave them names inspired by famous scientists, philosophers, and explorers. They created detailed maps of the near side that we still use today. Yet no matter how big their telescopes grew, the far side stayed stubbornly out of view. The moon's tidal lock kept it secret, turning just enough to keep half of its world hidden away. Of course, some early thinkers dreamed that the far side might be more than just rocks and craters. Stories were told of hidden cities, crystal towers, and lost civilizations living just out of sight. Even as science grew stronger, the human imagination held on to the dream that something magical might be waiting where no telescope could see. Today, we know the truth. We have sent spacecraft to orbit the moon, and we have photographs that show us exactly what lies on the far side. But there is something special about those early guesses. They remind us that science begins with wonder. It begins with a simple question whispered into the night. What if? Long ago, people stood under the same moon you see tonight, eyes wide with curiosity, dreaming of what secrets might lie hidden just beyond its silver edge. And maybe, as you drift to sleep, you will find yourself asking the same question, carried on the same quiet wonder that guided the first stargazers so long ago. The space race begins. The space race begins. By the middle of the 20th century, the world was changing faster than ever before. New machines, new ideas, and new fears spread across the globe like a rising tide. Two powerful nations, the United States and the Soviet Union, stood on opposite sides of a long, tense conflict known as the Cold War. They did not fight each other directly on battlefields. Instead, they competed in a different way by trying to prove who could go higher, farther, and faster into the unknown. This fierce race would soon turn its eyes toward the moon. People had always looked up at the moon with wonder, but now it became more than a quiet light in the night sky. It became a prize, a symbol of who could master space first. Each side wanted to show the world they had the greatest scientists, the strongest rockets, and the courage to reach for the stars. The Soviet Union struck the first blow in this new cosmic competition. In 1957, they shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the very first artificial satellite, into Earth's orbit. Just a small round ball with radio antennas, Sputnik's steady beeps echoed through the airwaves, a reminder that humans had finally touched the edge of space. The United States scrambled to catch up, pushing their own rocket scientists to work day and night. The next big leap came just 2 years later. In 1959, the Soviets did something no one else had done before. They sent a spacecraft called Luna 1 toward the moon. Luna 1 missed its mark and drifted off into space, but it proved that reaching the moon was possible. They tried again and again, each mission daring and dangerous. Then came Luna 2. This mission, launched later in 1959, smashed right into the moon's surface. It did not land softly or bring back pictures, but it showed the world that humans could reach another world. Bits of metal and Soviet emblems scattered across the lunar dust, tiny reminders that the space race was no longer a dream, but a real contest, playing out above everyone's heads. But the mission that changed everything was Luna 3. This brave little spacecraft carried something special, a camera. Its job was to fly around the moon and snap the very first pictures of the far side, the half that had stayed hidden from human eyes for all of time. No telescope on Earth could see it. No astronomer had ever drawn it. Luna 3's journey would reveal what was waiting in the shadows. When Luna 3 swung around the moon and snapped its pictures, engineers back on Earth held their breath. They waited as the tiny spacecraft sent its precious photos across space using radio waves. The images were blurry and grainy, but they were enough to see something amazing. The far side was not like the near side. It was rugged and rough, covered with craters and highlands, and almost completely missing the dark flat plains called Maria that we see on the side facing Earth. People around the world stared at the pictures in newspapers and science magazines. For the first time, they could see what had been hidden for millions of years. Scientists began to puzzle over why the two sides were so different. Theories filled lecture halls and late-night talks. Some thought it was the result of giant impacts long ago. Others wondered if the Earth's gravity had shaped the moon's crust over time, warming one side more than the other. The United States knew they could not let the Soviets stay ahead, so they pushed harder, pouring money and minds into their own missions. The Mercury and Gemini programs tested how humans could survive in space. Rocket engineers and astronauts trained for the day. They would not just fly by the moon, but land on it and bring its secrets home. The moon was now the ultimate goal. A quiet gray rock turned into a stage for human pride and human dreams. The space race was not only about science, it was about showing strength and winning the hearts of people watching from below. Children lay awake in their beds, listening to news reports crackling from radios, dreaming of rockets soaring into the night sky. Grown-ups wondered if the moon would one day have bases or cities built by humans. Some even feared what might happen if one side claimed the moon for themselves. In the end, the Soviets' daring early missions sparked a fire that carried humanity far beyond what once seemed possible. They lifted the veil on the moon's hidden face and proved that curiosity could break through the barriers of distance and darkness. Even now, when we look at those old blurry photos from Luna 3, we see the first brave steps into a larger universe. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, picture those early rockets roaring to life. leaving clouds of smoke behind as they rose into the unknown. Imagine the tiny spacecraft circling the moon, snapping pictures that would change what we know forever. And remember, every great adventure begins with one small, daring step into the dark. 8 Luna 3's blurry glimpse. Tadquabli wither somdi, you'd blovdomen. In 1959, the world was changing faster than it ever had before. Radios crackled with news of new inventions, rockets, and strange beeping sounds from the sky. Children dreamed of astronauts, and families gathered around small black and white televisions to watch the latest launches. It was an age of excitement, curiosity, and secret fears. It was also the year when humans would finally catch their very first glimpse of something no one had ever seen, the hidden far side of the moon. Before this moment, people had stared up at the same bright face for thousands of years. They named its shadows, dreamed up stories about the shapes they saw, and passed down legends of rabbits, spirits, and men trapped in the moon's light. Scientists guessed at what the other side might look like, but all they had were ideas, sketches, and questions. The moon's far side was a true mystery, a place out of reach for human eyes. Then came Luna 3, the Soviet Union, deep in its race to explore space before anyone else, launched a small, brave spacecraft with a simple but daring mission. Luna 3's job was to swing around the moon, take photographs of the far side, and send them back to Earth. It sounds easy now, but in 1959, it was like trying to take a picture in complete darkness using a camera no one had tested in space before. Luna 3 was not big or fancy. It was shaped like a cylinder with antennas and solar panels sticking out like whiskers. Inside it was a roll of film, a tiny camera, and the delicate equipment needed to keep it alive out there in the cold vacuum of space. As Luna 3 lifted off the launch pad and roared into the sky, engineers and scientists waited with pounding hearts. No one could know if it would survive the journey, let alone manage to take photos and send them home. After a few tense days, Luna 3 swung behind the moon. Imagine that moment, a small machine, alone in the darkness, drifting past mountains and craters that sunlight touched but human eyes never had. The camera clicked and whirred, capturing images on film inside its tiny body. Each picture was precious, a glimpse of a world we had only ever guessed about. Back on Earth, the real challenge was not over. Luna 3 had to develop the film, scan the images, and beam them back as radio signals. It was an experiment that might fail at any step, but somehow, through the hiss and hum of early radio transmissions, the first photos of the moon's far side flickered into view. When the images arrived, they were not sharp and clear like the high-definition photos we see today. They were blurry, ghostly shapes and shades of gray. Lines and shadows looked smudged, and details were hard to make out. But even with all that blur, the world was amazed. For the first time in history, people could see what lay on the hidden side of the moon. What they saw surprised everyone. Unlike the near side, with its wide, dark maria that looked like seas from afar, the far side was rough and battered. It was covered with countless craters and highlands, with barely any large flat plains. It seemed older, untouched by the same forces that shaped the side we see every night. Scientists realized that the moon's crust was thicker on the far side, which might explain why lava had not flooded its basins to create smooth plains like it did on the near side. These early pictures were more than just scientific data. They were a doorway into the unknown. Newspapers printed the grainy images for everyone to see. People gathered around kitchen tables and school desks, pointing to the fuzzy shapes and wondering what new secrets might be waiting out there. For some, it was proof that humans could reach beyond Earth's grasp. For others, it was a reminder that there was still so much we did not know. Behind the scenes, the Luna 3 photos inspired new questions and new dreams. If the far side looked so different, what else might we find if we could land there? Were there hidden resources buried in those deep craters? Could future explorers build bases among those ancient mountains, safe from the constant noise and signals coming from Earth? Could scientists place giant telescopes there, where they would be shielded from all the chatter of human technology? Though Luna 3 was just a small spacecraft with a simple camera, its blurry glimpse opened a new chapter in the story of our moon. It showed that even the cold, distant far side could not keep its secrets forever, and it proved that human curiosity is stronger than any barrier, even the one that nature built in the moon's constant spin. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift toward dreams, think of Luna 3, floating in the silent dark, camera pointed back at a face no one had seen before. Think of those black and white photos slowly appearing on fragile paper, full of shadows and mysteries. And remember that sometimes, even a blurry glimpse is enough to change the way we see the world and the universe forever. A surprising landscape. When the blurry photos from Luna 3 made their way back to Earth in 1959, people everywhere stared at them in wonder. They were not sharp, they were not easy to read. Some looked more like smudges than landscapes, but behind the grainy shapes was something no one had truly expected. The far side of the moon, the hidden half that had faced away from us for millions of years, was not the same as the side we see every night from our backyards and bedroom windows. It was rougher, older, and full of scars that spoke of a story written in stone. Before Luna 3, most scientists thought the far side would look much like the side they had studied through telescopes for centuries. The near side, the one we see, is dotted with dark patches called Maria. These are not seas at all, but ancient plains of hardened lava. Long ago, massive asteroids smashed into the moon's surface, cracking its crust. Lava seeped out and spread wide, filling the basins like black ink on paper. When you look up at the moon, those dark shapes are easy to spot. They create the shadows people have turned into rabbits, men, and faces for thousands of years. So when the photos of the far side arrived, people expected to see more Maria spread out like quiet lakes. Instead, they saw almost none. The smooth, dark plains were almost missing. Instead, the far side was covered with mountains, ridges, and craters of every size. It looked as if someone had tossed thousands of stones at a dusty field, leaving dents, gashes, and scars that would never heal. The far side seemed battered and ancient, like a battlefield frozen in time. Scientists and dreamers alike wondered, why was this side so different? What could have protected the near side but left the far side so rough? Or what had happened to make the far side story so much older, with fewer signs of lava flows softening its marks? One idea is that the moon's crust is thicker on the far side. When huge asteroids hit the near side, they cracked through the thinner crust, letting molten rock from deeper inside well up and fill the basins. But on the far side, the thicker crust kept the lava trapped below, so the craters and basins stayed rough and untouched. This idea helped explain why the far side's scars stayed open like old wounds, while the near side healed with smooth, dark plains. Another idea looks at Earth's role. Our planet is so big compared to the moon that it might have played a part in shaping the differences between the two sides. Some scientists think the Earth's heat in the early days of the solar system warmed the moon's near side just enough to make its crust thinner, letting lava pour out more easily. The far side facing away stayed cooler and thicker. Over billions of years, that small difference made a huge change in how each side looks today. Whatever the reason, the far side's rough face tells a story of deep time. Some of the craters there are among the oldest in the solar system. The South Pole Aitken Basin, for example, is one of the largest and deepest impact basins known. It stretches so wide that if you stood at one end, you would not see the other. It reaches so deep that studying it might help us understand what lies below the moon's crust. These ancient impacts are like pages in a history book that no wind or rain can wash away. They keep a record of what our corner of the universe was like when planets were young and collisions were common. Standing under the moon today, you might never guess that one side is so scarred and different. From Earth, the moon always looks calm and gentle. Its light bathes us in silver glow, making the night feel a little less lonely. But hidden beyond that glow is a landscape that feels wild and untouched. It is a reminder that what we see is not always the whole story. Some people find the far side's roughness haunting, others find it beautiful. To them, those craters and mountains show strength, proof that the moon has survived billions of years of impacts and yet still shines over us each night. Those scars are not signs of weakness, but of endurance. The next time you gaze up at the moon, take a moment to think about what lies just out of sight. Picture the battered highlands, the endless craters, the silent valleys that no sunlight reaches for long. Think of the brave little Luna 3 drifting behind that silver circle, snapping pictures that showed us a face we had never seen. And remember that sometimes the roughest places hold the oldest secrets, waiting for the day when dreamers and explorers will come to learn what they have to say. As you drift off to sleep, let the moon's surprising landscape remind you that the world and the universe is full of hidden places. Some are rough, some are smooth, all of them are waiting to be found by curious minds like yours. Desanon? Why so different? Pure faith. When the first blurry images of the moon's far side reached Earth, scientists and dreamers alike sat up and stared. It was not at all what they had expected. The side we see every night looks almost peaceful from afar. Pale plains, dark patches, and shadows that move gently with each phase. But the far side looked wild and scarred, covered with craters and highlands that seemed to have barely changed since the moon was young. It was like looking at two different worlds joined together in one round face. So, why is the moon so different on each side? What forces shaped it this way? The answer is still unfolding, but scientists now believe it comes down to a mix of three things: the crust itself, ancient impacts from space, and the quiet tug of gravity between the moon and Earth. Let's start with the crust. Think of the moon's crust as its outer shell, the rocky surface that we can see when we look up at it. On the side that faces Earth, this shell is thinner. It is easier for lava and heat from deeper inside the moon to break through. Long ago, when giant asteroids slammed into the near side, they cracked the crust wide open. Hot molten rock bubbled up and spread out, filling the low spots and leaving behind the smooth, dark plains called Maria. On the far side, though, the crust is much thicker, in some places nearly twice as thick. When big rocks from space struck this side, they still left huge craters and basins, but the molten rock inside the moon did not break through so easily. The crust held it in like a lid on a pot. So instead of wide, smooth plains, the far side stayed rough and rugged, covered in mountains and deep scars that never healed over. This difference in crust thickness probably dates back to the moon's earliest days. Scientists believe the moon formed about 4.5 billion years ago, when something massive, perhaps another young planet, crashed into Earth. The debris from that impact came together in space to form our moon. In those first millions of years, the young moon was hot and partly melted. Lava oozed and churned inside it, shaping the layers we see today. Some researchers think that as the moon cooled, the side closest to Earth stayed warmer for longer. Earth, still molten and glowing from the big impact, may have heated the near side just enough to keep its crust thinner. The far side, turned away from Earth's warmth, cooled faster and formed a thicker shell. It was a small difference at first, but over billions of years, it shaped what we see now. Then came the impacts. In the early solar system, space was full of debris left over from forming planets and moons. Giant asteroids and comets raced around the sun, sometimes smashing into anything in their path. The moon, with no thick atmosphere to burn up these rocks, took hit after hit. Each strike left a crater or a basin, like dents in soft clay. On the near side, many of these craters were later filled in with lava that smoothed them over into the dark Maria we see today. On the far side, the lava did not come, so the craters stayed as they were, deep bowls surrounded by high ridges and mountains that look frozen in time. Some of these basins are among the largest known in our solar system, like the South Pole Aitken Basin. It stretches over 1,500 miles wide and reaches more than 5 miles deep in places. By studying these giant scars, scientists hope to learn what lies under the moon's crust and how the moon's interior has changed over time. Gravity has also played a part in this story. The Earth's gravity pulls on the moon, shaping not just its orbit, but its very body. Over millions of years, this gentle tugging helped the moon settle into tidal locking, the same force that keeps one side always facing us. Gravity may also have shifted how heat and lava moved inside the moon when it was young, helping make one side smoother and the other side more rugged. Some scientists think there could be other reasons too. Maybe the moon captured smaller objects early on, or perhaps there were hidden pockets of heat that shifted the balance between the near side and the far side. The truth is, the moon still holds many secrets beneath its dusty surface. Each new mission and each rock sample brings us closer to solving these puzzles. What we do know is that the moon's two faces remind us how nature can create balance in unexpected ways. The far side's rugged highlands hold clues to the moon's earliest days. They are like pages in an ancient book, waiting for curious minds to read them. The near side's smooth Maria tell the story of how lava once flowed across the moon, reshaping what was broken. So next time you see the moon glowing above, remember that what you see is only half the story. Beyond that gentle light is a face marked by ancient impacts, thick crust and the pull of gravity that has kept it hidden for millions of years. As you drift off to sleep, let this remind you that the universe is full of surprises, sometimes rough, sometimes smooth, but always waiting for someone to ask, why is it so different? If you could drift above the far side of the moon, you would see a place unlike anywhere on Earth, a place so vast and deep that it could swallow mountains and cities whole. This place is called the South Pole Aitken Basin, and it is one of the largest and oldest impact craters in the entire solar system. To look at it is to stare straight into the ancient past, into secrets buried beneath the moon's surface for billions of years. The South Pole Aitken Basin stretches about 1,500 miles wide from edge to edge. That is about the distance from New York City to Miami, all carved out of solid rock. Some parts of the basin sink more than 5 miles deep, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. If you were standing on the edge of one of its steep cliffs, you would be looking down into a scar left behind by a truly massive collision. Long ago, when the moon was still young and the solar system was a dangerous neighborhood, giant rocks called asteroids roamed freely, crashing into anything that got in their way. One of these ancient wanderers smashed into the moon's far side with so much force that it created this enormous basin. The impact was so powerful that it cracked the moon's crust and may have even reached the mantle, the layer hidden deep beneath the rocky surface. Scientists think the South Pole Aitken Basin could be more than 4 billion years old. That means this crater was formed not long after the moon itself came into being. To imagine that age, think of how long humans have walked the Earth, only a tiny blink in comparison. This basin has been sitting quietly on the moon, untouched by wind or rain, for nearly all of our planet's history. But why does this ancient hole in the ground matter so much? The answer lies in what it might be hiding beneath the surface. When that giant asteroid struck the moon, it did not just leave a hole, it ripped away layers of rock, exposing material that would have otherwise stayed buried forever. Some scientists believe pieces of the moon's deeper layers were brought up to the surface by the impact. These rocks could hold clues about how the moon formed and how its insides have changed over time. If we could study these rocks up close, they might help us answer questions that have puzzled scientists for centuries. How did the moon's crust become thicker on one side and thinner on the other? What did the inside of the moon look like billions of years ago? Did the moon's early life play a role in how Earth became the way it is today? So far, we have only scratched the surface. Spacecraft have flown over the South Pole Aitken Basin, snapping pictures and scanning its terrain with special instruments. They have mapped its mountains and valleys, and they have measured strange changes in gravity over the basin. Some places weigh more than expected, hinting at hidden masses of dense rock deep below. These lumps, called mascons for mass concentrations, could reveal how the moon's crust and mantle shifted after the impact. Some future missions are being planned to visit this enormous crater. Scientists dream of sending robotic landers or even astronauts to collect rock samples right from the basin's floor. If we could bring those rocks back to Earth, we could study them in ways that are impossible with just pictures and remote measurements. Each sample could be like a puzzle piece, helping us see the bigger picture of how the moon, Earth, and the rest of the solar system formed and changed over billions of years. The South Pole Aitken Basin is not just interesting because of its size and age, its location makes it special too. Parts of the basin lie near the moon's south pole, a place where sunlight does not always reach. Deep inside the basin's shadowed craters, there could be pockets of ancient ice, water frozen solid for eons. If that ice is there, it could help future explorers survive and study the moon for longer periods. It could even become fuel for rockets traveling to more distant worlds. Standing under the night sky, you might never guess that such an enormous scar lies just out of sight on the moon's far side. From Earth, we see only the calm face we know so well, with its soft glow and gentle shadows. But hidden beyond that face is a reminder that our moon is more than just a bright circle in the sky. It is a time capsule, a keeper of secrets written in stone. So tonight, as you lie back and let your eyes grow heavy, imagine drifting over the rim of the South Pole Aitken Basin. Picture ancient cliffs and valleys stretching out before you, so wide and deep they make you feel small and curious all at once. Somewhere down there, beneath the moon's surface, pieces of our shared cosmic story are waiting to be found by the dreamers and explorers who dare to look. Thea 2, the far side's radio quiet. Tonight the Boerperg, for Nontourtoks turned Farbits. Imagine standing on the far side of the moon. There is no wind to tug at your clothes. There are no birds calling in the distance. There are no cars rumbling down the road or people talking on their phones. In fact, there is not a single sound to be heard. Even if you had the best radio in the world, you would not pick up your favorite music station or a distant broadcast from Earth. Out here, the far side of the moon is one of the quietest places you could ever visit, not just to your ears, but to the sensitive ears of science too. The moon's far side is special for many reasons, but one of its most remarkable gifts is the way it blocks Earth's constant chatter. You might not think about it much, but our planet is buzzing with invisible radio waves all the time. Every television broadcast, every phone call, every satellite signal and Wi-Fi network sends tiny bits of energy through the air. They swirl around the world like a blanket of noise, covering everything. For scientists who want to listen to the quiet sounds of the universe, all that noise can make it hard to hear what they are looking for. Back on Earth, radio telescopes try to pick up whispers from deep space, signals from stars being born, from galaxies far away, and even from the earliest moments after the universe began. But all the signals we make on Earth can get in the way. It is like trying to hear a soft song when 100 radios are playing at once in your living room. The signals from Earth's technology are loud and constant, and they bounce off our atmosphere, spreading farther than you might expect. That is where the far side of the moon becomes a gift to science. The moon itself acts like a giant shield. Its thick body blocks Earth's radio noise completely, wrapping the far side in a bubble of natural silence. This makes it the only place close to us where we can hide from the endless hum of our own technology. It is like stepping into a secret room where the rest of the world cannot follow you. Because of this, the far side of the moon is sometimes called the best natural radio quiet zone near Earth. There is no other spot this close to our planet where scientists can listen so clearly for the faintest signals from the universe. This quiet zone is not just nice to have, it might help answer some of the biggest questions we have ever asked. Some of the sounds scientists want to listen for are not sounds at all, but radio waves from billions of light years away. These radio waves can tell us about how the first stars and galaxies formed. They might help us understand how the universe looked when it was still new, before planets and people and the moon itself even existed. But these signals are incredibly faint. Earth's radio chatter easily drowns them out, like a whisper lost in a noisy room. On the moon's far side, though, that whisper can be heard. Here, in the deep silence, a giant radio telescope could listen for hours, days, or even years without being interrupted. Some scientists dream of building enormous radio dishes tucked into craters on the far side, safe in the shadows and protected from Earth's noise. These telescopes could listen for things we have never heard before, echoes of the Big Bang, clues about dark matter, or even signals from other worlds. This radio quiet zone could also help us search for signs of life far beyond our solar system. Some people wonder if we might one day pick up a faint, repeating pattern, a signal that did not come from nature, but from another civilization trying to say hello. If that signal ever comes, the best place to hear it first might be the far side of the moon. Of course, it is not easy to build things there. The far side is hard to reach and even harder to communicate with because Earth's radio waves cannot get there. Astronauts and robots need special relay satellites floating above the moon to send messages back home, but many scientists believe the effort would be worth it. In that silence, we might find answers to questions we have carried for generations. So tonight, as you look up at the moon and see its gentle light, remember that beyond that bright face is a place quieter than anywhere on Earth, a place where no phones ring, no radios play, and no machines hum, a place where the softest whispers of the universe drift by, waiting for us to listen. And as you drift off to sleep, know that somewhere out there, in that deep and perfect quiet, the secrets of the cosmos may be waiting, ready to be heard by those brave enough to listen. A cosmic listening post. A cosmic listening post. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing on the far side of the moon. There is no wind or air to carry your voice. The ground beneath your feet is covered in fine gray dust that has not moved for millions of years. Overhead, the sky is black and endless, filled with stars that do not twinkle like they do on Earth. It is quiet in a way that feels deep and endless, but if you could hear beyond your ears, you would find that this place is not empty. It is the perfect spot to listen to the faintest whispers from the beginning of time. For astronomers, the people who spend their lives studying the stars, the far side of the moon has become one of the most exciting places in our solar system. They dream of turning it into a giant listening post, a place where huge radio telescopes could reach out into the universe's past and pick up signals so faint that our noisy Earth would drown them out completely. To understand why the moon's far side is so special, you first have to know what astronomers want to hear. Long ago, before there were stars or planets, the universe was dark and filled with gas. Slowly, tiny pieces of matter began to come together under the force of gravity. At some point, the first stars were born. They began to shine, and their light spread out across the universe. This time is called the cosmic dawn, the moment when the universe woke up and started to look like the one we see today. These first stars and galaxies left behind faint traces in the form of radio waves. Radio waves are like invisible ripples traveling through space. They carry stories about how the first light appeared, how galaxies grew, and how the universe changed over billions of years. But these signals are so faint and so old that they are almost impossible to hear from Earth. Our planet's atmosphere blocks some of them. The endless buzz of radio signals from TVs, cell phones, and satellites blocks out the rest. That is why astronomers dream of building observatories on the far side of the moon. The moon acts like a giant wall, blocking Earth's noisy signals. It creates a natural bubble of silence. In that silence, a radio telescope could pick up the soft, distant songs of the universe's earliest days. It would be like walking into a deep, quiet forest where you can finally hear a single bird singing in the trees. These telescopes would not look like the shiny optical telescopes we see on mountaintops. Instead, they would be huge dishes or long lines of antennas stretching across the dusty surface. Some scientists even imagine building a giant radio dish inside one of the moon's craters, using the natural bowl shape to collect signals from the sky. Others dream of scattering thousands of small antennas across the far side, working together to gather and combine the faint whispers from space. If this cosmic listening post becomes real, what could it teach us? A lot. It could help us see how the first stars flickered to life, burning hot and bright and pushing away the darkness. It could show us how the first galaxies formed, pulling in gas and dust and creating the building blocks of everything that exists today. It could help us learn more about mysterious things like dark matter and dark energy, invisible forces that shape the universe but remain deeply hidden. These far-side observatories could also help us answer one of the biggest questions of all: are we alone? By listening in the quiet, astronomers could search for unusual signals that do not come from natural sources. Some dream that one day we might hear a repeating pattern or a strange sound that hints at another civilization out there trying to reach across the stars. If there is a place to hear such a message, it might be here, where the universe's secrets float by undisturbed. Building this listening post will not be easy. The far side of the moon is far away and hard to reach. Astronauts and robots will need to carry heavy equipment, lay out antennas, and make sure everything can survive the moon's freezing nights and blazing days. Special relay satellites will need to float above the moon to carry data back to Earth, since the far side's radio quiet means it cannot easily send signals our way. But many scientists believe it is worth the challenge. So next time you stand under the night sky and see the moon glowing above you, remember that just beyond its shining face lies the perfect place for listening, a place where astronomers hope to build a bridge to the past, to hear echoes of the first stars and galaxies, a place where, in the deepest silence, the oldest stories of the universe are still waiting to be told. And as you drift to sleep tonight, imagine those gentle whispers floating across the far side's dusty plains, ready for curious minds to hear what they have to say. Lunar base idea. Lunar base idea. If you stand outside on a clear night and look up at the moon, it is easy to forget just how harsh and lonely it really is. From far away, it looks gentle and bright, almost like a guiding lantern in the dark. But up close, the moon is a place of extremes, a place where the temperature can swing from boiling hot during the day to freezing cold at night, and where no air or water waits to welcome us. Despite these challenges, scientists and dreamers at NASA in China and around the world still imagine one day building a base on the far side of the moon. Why the far side? Well, as you know now, the far side holds special secrets. It is a radio quiet zone, shielded from all the chatter and static we create on Earth. It has ancient craters like the South Pole Aitken Basin, which may reveal clues about how the moon formed. It might even hide pockets of ice deep inside shadowed places, ice that could one day help keep astronauts alive far from home. NASA and China have both talked about building future science stations or small bases on the moon. Some of these ideas start with simple robotic outposts that study rocks and measure radiation. But in the years to come, bigger plans imagine humans living there for weeks or months at a time. They could run experiments, look for water, test new tools, and use the moon as a training ground for bigger journeys, like trips to Mars. The far side is especially interesting for astronomers. They dream of setting up giant radio telescopes tucked inside deep craters. In the silence there, they could listen for the oldest signals in the universe, searching for echoes of the first stars and galaxies. A base on the far side could make this dream possible, giving scientists a place to live and work while they build and maintain these huge listening posts. But building a base on the far side is much harder than it sounds. The first challenge is isolation. Even today, no human has ever stepped onto the far side of the moon. When the Apollo astronauts visited, they stayed on the near side so they could keep in touch with Earth. On the far side, the moon's own body blocks all direct signals. This means any crew or robots there cannot talk to mission control without special help. To fix this, space agencies would need relay satellites floating above the moon. These satellites would catch the messages and beam them back to Earth. Then there is the harsh terrain. The far side is rugged and uneven, covered in ancient craters, sharp rocks, and fine dust that clings to everything. Unlike the smoother plains on the near side, the far side's ground can be tricky for heavy equipment and landers. Astronauts would need to find safe places to build. They might choose deep craters near the poles, where shadows protect ice from melting. But building in a shadow means dealing with bitter cold and months of darkness during the lunar night. Another big challenge is surviving the moon's extreme environment. The temperature on the surface can swing more than 500 degrees Fahrenheit from day to night. There is no air to breathe or protect against radiation from the sun and deep space. Any lunar base would need thick walls or be buried under rock to shield astronauts from harmful rays. Scientists also hope to use lava tubes, tunnels left behind by ancient volcanoes, as natural shelters that could protect explorers from radiation and micrometeorites. Supplying a base would be hard too. Everything people need, food, water, oxygen, and fuel, must be carried from Earth or made on the moon. This is why finding frozen water in shadowed craters is so important. Water can be turned into drinking water and oxygen. It can even be broken down into hydrogen and oxygen to make rocket fuel. A base that can live off the land will make lunar missions cheaper and safer. Despite all these obstacles, the idea of a lunar base on the far side keeps scientists dreaming. They know it will not happen overnight. First, we will send more robots to scout the best spots and test new building techniques. Next, small crewed missions will visit for short stays, learning how to work together in the moon's harsh conditions. One day, these short visits could grow into something bigger, a research outpost buzzing with life and discoveries. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine a small cluster of shiny habitats nestled inside a crater on the moon's far side. Picture astronauts stepping carefully across the dusty ground, setting up radio antennas, or drilling into ancient rock to unlock secrets that have waited for billions of years. Think of the relay satellites floating high above, keeping the base connected to Earth. And know that even in the loneliest corners of space, human curiosity and courage will always find a way to build, explore, and dream. Imagine standing at the edge of a deep, dark crater near the moon's south pole. The sun is shining far away on distant peaks, casting sharp shadows across the rugged landscape. But down here in the bottom of the crater, sunlight never reaches. This place has been in darkness for billions of years, colder than anywhere on Earth, and untouched by the warmth that lights up the moon's brighter plains. What could possibly be hiding in a place so dark and so cold? Scientists now believe the answer could be something simple yet precious: frozen water. It might seem strange to talk about water on the moon. For most of history, people thought the moon was bone dry, a dusty ball of rock with no lakes, rivers, or rain. And for the most part, that is true. There are no flowing streams or cloudy skies on the moon. But in these deep, permanently shadowed craters, the story is different. Because sunlight never touches these places, they stay incredibly cold, so cold that ice can survive for billions of years, locked away like a hidden treasure. These frozen pockets are called permanently shadowed regions. They exist mostly near the moon's poles, where the angle of the sun is so low that some crater floors never get a single ray of direct sunlight. Some of these shadows may be older than the oldest forests on Earth. In the freezing darkness, tiny bits of water ice carried by ancient comets or formed by chemical reactions have stayed trapped in the soil, waiting for us to find them. The idea that water could exist on the moon became more than just a guess in the last few decades. In 2009, a NASA mission called L-Cross crashed a rocket stage into one of these dark craters. When the impact kicked up a huge plume of dust, scientists on Earth looked closely at the light bouncing off the particles. There it was, the clear signature of water ice mixed in with the lunar soil. Since then, other missions have confirmed that these icy patches are real, scattered in small grains and larger clumps inside the coldest shadows. Why does this matter so much? After all, the moon is far away, and hauling heavy equipment up there is expensive and difficult. But if people want to live and work on the moon for more than just a few days, they will need water. Water is heavy to launch from Earth, so finding it on the moon could change everything. Imagine not having to carry all your drinking water or oxygen with you. Imagine not needing to launch rocket fuel from Earth every time you want to go further. Those frozen shadows could make it all possible. Water can be melted for drinking, turned into oxygen for breathing, or split into hydrogen and oxygen to make rocket fuel. This means that the moon's hidden ice could help astronauts survive and could also act like a gas station in space. A future lunar base near the South Pole might use sunlight on nearby ridges to power its systems, while robots or people carefully mine ice from the shadows below. This is one reason why so many space agencies, from NASA to China's space program, are looking closely at the moon's poles. They see these shadowed craters as keys to a future where humans can stay on the moon longer, explore further, and maybe even launch missions to Mars or beyond. The moon could become a stepping stone into the rest of the solar system, and the ancient water hidden in the shadows might open the door. Of course, collecting that water will not be easy. The shadows are so cold that machinery must survive temperatures colder than -400 degrees Fahrenheit. The terrain is steep and slippery, covered in fine dust that sticks to everything. Future missions will need to test ways to dig up ice without wasting it, to purify it, and to store it safely. Scientists and engineers are working on these problems right now, hoping that when the first long-term moon explorers arrive, they will have what they need to survive. Sometimes it is the simplest things that hold the biggest promise. A single drop of water can mean the difference between life and death in a place as empty as the moon. These frozen shadows remind us that even in the most silent, forgotten corners of our solar system, hope and possibility can be found if we look carefully enough. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, picture those deep, dark craters near the moon's south pole. Imagine the ancient ice, sparkling faintly in the darkness, untouched for billions of years. One day, explorers might melt that ice into a glass of water or split it into rocket fuel that sends them further than ever before. And it all begins with the shadows that hide water, waiting patiently for someone brave enough to reach in and discover what lies within. The Chang'e mission? The Chang'e mission? For centuries, people looked up at the moon and dreamed of what might be hidden on its far side. It was the part we could never see from Earth, a place of shadows, deep craters, and ancient scars. Even after spacecraft like Luna 3 sent back the first blurry photos, no human or robot ever set down gently on that hidden half. Then, in January 2019, that changed. A small lander named Chang'e 4 touched down on the far side of the moon, making history as the first mission to land softly in this quiet, mysterious region. The Chang'e missions are named after the moon goddess from Chinese legend. In the old story, Chang'e drank an elixir of immortality and floated up to live on the moon forever, with only a jade rabbit to keep her company. It is a name full of poetry and hope, fitting for a program meant to explore the moon in ways no one has ever done before. Before Chang'e 4, China had already made big strides in exploring the moon. Chang'e 1 and Chang'e 2 were orbiters that mapped the moon's surface in great detail. Chang'e 3 sent a lander and a small rover named U2, the Jade Rabbit, to the near side in 2013. But Chang'e 4 was different. Its mission was to go where no spacecraft had gone before, the far side, the place always turned away from Earth. Landing on the far side is much more challenging than landing on the side that faces us. The biggest problem is communication. The moon's body blocks all signals, so if a lander tried to send a message directly back to Earth, it would never make it. Imagine trying to talk to someone through a huge stone wall. Your voice just would not get through. Engineers needed a way to break through that barrier. China solved this puzzle with clever planning. Before they launched Chang'e 4, they first sent a special satellite called Chow into space. Chow means magpie bridge, named after another old story in which magpies form a bridge with their wings so two separated lovers can meet once a year. In this case, the satellite became the bridge between the far side of the moon and Earth. It flew out beyond the moon and settled into a special orbit where it can always see both the far side and our planet at the same time. Thanks to Chow, Chang'e 4 could whisper its discoveries through the satellite and back to the scientists waiting on Earth. When Chang'e 4 touched down in the von Karman crater, it sent back clear pictures of a place no one had ever explored up close. The lander carried a small rover called U-22, Jade Rabbit 2, which crawled down a ramp and began its slow journey across the dusty surface. The rover's job was to study the rocks and soil, measure radiation, and listen to the ground for moonquakes. It even carried a small biological experiment to see how plants and insects might grow in the moon's weak gravity. One of the most important goals of the Chang'e 4 mission was to study the ancient rocks in this region. The von Karman crater sits inside the huge South Pole Aitken Basin, one of the biggest and oldest impact basins on the moon. By scooping up samples and scanning the ground, the rover could help scientists understand how the moon formed and changed over time. Chang'e 4's success was more than just a scientific triumph. It showed that careful planning and new ideas can overcome even the biggest challenges. It proved that people could reach the moon's hidden half, work there, and send back what they learn. The relay satellite Chow was a key part of that success. Without it, the lander and rover would have been like explorers lost in the dark, with no way to share their discoveries. The mission is still going, quietly gathering data and rolling across the far side's dusty plains. Each piece of information it sends back helps us learn a little more about this old, quiet neighbor in the sky. And each photo reminds us how much more there is to discover. As you drift off tonight, imagine Chang'e 4 resting on that lonely plain, its Jade Rabbit rover slowly moving past ancient craters and boulders that have not changed for billions of years. High above, the Magpie Bridge satellite hovers, catching each tiny signal and carrying it across the emptiness of space back to Earth. It is a quiet reminder that when people dream of what is hidden just out of sight, they find a way to reach it, one small signal at a time. When the Chang'e 4 mission made its quiet landing on the far side of the moon, it opened a door that had been closed for all of human history. For the first time, people could see this hidden half, not just in grainy photos from space, but up close right on the ground. The little rover, U-22, which means Jade Rabbit 2, rolled down its ramp and began exploring this ancient, untouched world. It did not hurry. It could not run fast like a car or fly like a drone, but every slow turn of its wheels brought new secrets into the light. So, what did this brave little rover and its lander find in this lonely place? First, there were the rocks. On Earth, we see rocks every day. They sit by the side of the road, pile up on beaches, and tumble down mountains. But moon rocks are not ordinary at all. Each one holds clues to a story that goes back billions of years. U-22's main job was to look at the ground and see what it was made of. It used special tools to study the soil and rocks, measuring how light bounced off them to figure out what minerals they contained. One surprise was the type of material found in the von Karman crater where the rover landed. Scientists expected to find mostly basalt, a dark, dense volcanic rock that covers much of the moon's near side. But U-22's instruments picked up signs of something older and deeper. Beneath the dust lay pieces of a mineral called olivine, which comes from the moon's mantle, the layer beneath its crust. This meant that the giant impact that created the South Pole Aitken Basin must have been powerful enough to dig deep into the moon, scattering pieces of its hidden insides across the surface. Finding traces of the mantle so close to the surface was exciting. It gave scientists a rare chance to study parts of the moon they could never drill down to themselves. These rocks could help explain how the moon formed long ago, how its crust and mantle separated, and how massive impacts changed it over time. Each little sample from U-22 is like a time capsule, holding clues that scientists will be studying for many years. But the rover's work did not stop at rocks. Chang'e 4 and U-22 also carried special tools to listen to the moon in other ways. One experiment focused on radio waves. You see, the far side of the moon is shielded from all the noisy radio signals that cover Earth. It is the quietest place nearby to listen for the faint whispers of the universe. A small low-frequency radio spectrometer on the lander began testing how well radio signals could be picked up in this calm zone. The results will help scientists design future telescopes that might one day hear the echoes of the universe's earliest moments, the cosmic dawn, when the first stars began to shine. Another unexpected surprise came when U-22 used its ground-penetrating radar. This tool sends pulses into the ground and listens for the echoes that bounce back. It is like using X-ray vision to peek beneath the surface. What the rover found was fascinating. Layer after layer of old rock and soil, stacked like pages in a book. Some of these layers showed signs of ancient lava flows that once spilled across the moon's surface. Others held records of impacts from long ago, frozen in time because there is no wind or rain to wash them away. Each layer helps paint a clearer picture of what the moon's far side has been through, how it cooled, how it cracked, and how it survived countless asteroid strikes. One of the mission's smaller experiments was also full of hope. Inside the lander was a tiny sealed canister that held seeds, potato shoots, and even silkworm eggs. This mini biosphere was the first attempt to see if life could grow, even for a short time, in the moon's low gravity and harsh conditions. For a few days, the seeds sprouted, a tiny green leaf, pushing its way into the moon's weak sunlight. The experiment did not last long, but it showed that future astronauts might one day grow food in special habitats, reducing how much they need to bring from Earth. The rover also taught scientists a lot about how machines survive on the far side. The moon's surface gets extremely hot in the day and freezing cold at night. Dust creeps into every crack and can damage parts that move. By studying how U-2's wheels and instruments handled these rough conditions, engineers can design better robots and tools for future missions. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, imagine U-22, the Jade Rabbit, rolling slowly across the silent plain, leaving tiny tracks in the ancient dust. Picture its radar peeking deep into the moon's layers, its camera sending back pictures of rocks older than any mountain on Earth. Imagine seeds sprouting under a glass dome, reaching for the sun in a place that has never known life. Each small discovery is a reminder that the moon still has stories to tell, stories hidden for billions of years, waiting for curious minds and brave little rovers to find them. When you look up at the moon from your backyard or out your window, it may seem like nothing more than a lonely ball of rock floating through the sky. Its dusty surface looks empty, with only craters and plains that sit quietly under the sunlight and stars. But hidden beneath that rough surface could be something amazing, ancient tunnels carved out by flowing lava long ago. These underground passageways, called lava tubes, might one day help humans live and work on the moon, especially on its rough, unexplored far side. Lava tubes are not just a science fiction dream, they exist right here on Earth, too. In places where volcanoes once poured out rivers of molten rock, some lava flows cooled and hardened on the outside, while the hot lava inside kept flowing like a river in a pipe. When the eruption ended and the lava drained away, it left behind long, hollow tunnels under the ground. You can find these natural caves in places like Hawaii or Iceland, where curious explorers can walk through them and see how nature made these hidden spaces. Scientists think the same thing happened on the moon billions of years ago. Back then, the moon was a much more active place. Giant impacts cracked its surface, and volcanic activity sent lava flowing across ancient plains. As the lava moved, some of it carved tunnels beneath the crust. Today, many of these tunnels have likely collapsed, but some may still be there waiting quietly under the moon's dusty skin. What makes these lunar lava tubes so interesting is not just that they exist, but what they could mean for the future. The moon's surface is a harsh place for humans. There is no air to breathe, no thick atmosphere to block dangerous radiation from the sun and space, and no protection from tiny meteoroids that zip through the sky and slam into the ground. Temperatures swing wildly, boiling hot during the day and freezing cold at night. A base sitting on the surface must be built strong enough to survive all these threats. But inside a lava tube, things are different. The rock overhead acts like a natural shield. It can block harmful radiation, protect against meteoroids, and keep temperatures more stable. Instead of baking in the sun or freezing in the dark, explorers inside a lava tube could be safer and more comfortable. It would be like stepping into a hidden bunker, made not by humans, but by the moon itself. This idea is exciting for scientists planning future lunar bases. Some even imagine turning these tunnels into underground villages. Robots could dig out entrances and test the walls to make sure they are strong. Inflatable habitats could be set up inside, with oxygen and power brought in from the surface. Inside, astronauts could work, sleep, and grow food away from the moon's harshest conditions. Some researchers think parts of the far side, with its rough highlands and ancient volcanic regions, could hold some of the biggest and deepest lava tubes yet to be found. Finding these tunnels will not be easy. From space, they are invisible, hidden under layers of rock and dust. But sometimes a collapsed section of a tunnel leaves behind a clue, a big hole in the ground called a skylight. Satellites orbiting the moon have spotted these skylights in a few places on the near side. They look like dark pits with smooth edges, opening into deep shadows below. Scientists believe more skylights could exist on the far side too, waiting to be discovered by future missions. Robots and rovers will likely be the first to visit these mysterious entrances. They can use ground-penetrating radar to peek below the surface and map out the tunnels without setting foot inside. One day, small drones could fly down into these caves, taking pictures and testing the airless darkness for signs of ice or useful minerals. What would it feel like for the first astronauts to step into a lunar lava tube? Imagine walking down a slope into the shadows, your footsteps the only sound, in a place that has been untouched for billions of years. Overhead, a thick ceiling of rock protects you from the deadly rays of the sun. Around you, walls of ancient stone tell the story of lava that once flowed like rivers beneath the moon's crust. In that moment, the empty tunnels would not feel empty at all. They would feel like safe harbors in a wild, distant world. So tonight, as you snuggle deeper under your blanket, think of those hidden caves on the far side of the moon. Picture ancient tunnels winding beneath mountains and craters, waiting to shelter explorers who dream of calling the moon home. One day, human footsteps and soft lights may fill these silent passageways, turning nature's forgotten lava tubes into pathways to an exciting future, all carved out by the moon itself, long before we ever looked up and wondered what secrets lie just out of sight. Strange anomalies and oddities. Oddities with bather, but daily world and no mix but tongue. The far side of the moon has always been a place of wonder and questions. Even though we now have maps, photographs, and data sent back from brave little rovers, some parts of this hidden half still puzzle scientists. Deep beneath its dusty plains and rugged highlands, strange things lurk, tiny mysteries that do not show themselves in the moon's soft glow, but in invisible forces like magnetism and gravity. These oddities remind us that the moon has secrets we are only beginning to understand. One of these secrets is something scientists call a magnetic swirl. When people first started mapping the moon's magnetic fields, they found unusual patches where the magnetism was strangely strong, small areas scattered here and there, not spread evenly. Imagine walking across the lunar surface and carrying a tiny compass. In most places, the moon would not affect your compass much because it does not have a strong magnetic field like Earth does. But if you passed over one of these swirls, your compass needle might wobble or point in a different direction, even though there is no metal buried there to pull it. One of the most famous examples is called Reiner Gamma, found on the near side, but the far side has its own magnetic mysteries too. Some swirls are tied to unusual patterns on the surface, bright, looping shapes that twist and turn in ways that do not match the craters and plains around them. They look like giant brushstrokes painted on the moon, standing out against the gray rock. What could have made these marks and their magnetic force? No one knows for sure. Some scientists think these swirls were formed when tiny bits of magnetic material were left behind by comets or meteorites that hit the moon long ago. Others believe they might have been created when powerful solar storms struck the moon's surface, stirring up the magnetic particles hidden in the rocks. Some even wonder if there could be iron or other metals deep below, leftover pieces from when the moon was still forming. Each idea brings us a step closer, but no answer fits perfectly yet. Another strange mystery hiding on the far side is what scientists call a gravity anomaly. To understand this, think of gravity as an invisible pull that keeps our feet on the ground. On Earth, gravity is mostly the same everywhere, but it can be a little stronger or weaker depending on what lies beneath our feet. The moon is similar. When spacecraft fly over certain places, their paths wobble ever so slightly because the gravity pulls harder or softer in unexpected spots. One of the biggest gravity mysteries on the far side lies inside the South Pole, Aitken Basin, that giant ancient crater stretching hundreds of miles wide and miles deep. When scientists studied the basin, they found that parts of it are much heavier than they should be. Deep beneath the surface sits a huge mass of something dense. Some researchers believe it could be metal left behind by the asteroid that carved out the basin billions of years ago. Others wonder if it is a piece of the moon's mantle pushed up from deep inside when the impact hit. What is strange is that this extra mass does not match what we see on the surface. The ground looks like old rock and dust, but far below, something massive and heavy sits quietly, pulling on passing spacecraft and making their orbits shift. No probe or rover has dug deep enough to see exactly what is down there. For now, the hidden mass remains a silent guest in the moon's deep crust, waiting for future missions to solve the puzzle. These magnetic swirls and gravity oddities remind us that the moon is not just a lifeless rock. It is a world shaped by powerful forces, impacts from giant space rocks, ancient lava flows, and constant showers of solar wind. Each layer of rock, each buried secret, tells a story about what happened over billions of years, and yet some chapters are still missing. One day, brave explorers and clever robots may dig deeper. They may drill into the crust, take samples from under the swirls, and map the strange gravity lumps in greater detail. Maybe they will find pieces of iron, or frozen bits of an ancient impactor, or something we cannot yet imagine. So tonight, as you close your eyes and drift off to sleep, picture the far side of the moon under its blanket of stars. Think of the hidden swirls of magnetism curling through the rock like secret threads. Imagine the heavy mass deep beneath the crater, pulling softly on passing spacecraft as they sail overhead. In that quiet darkness, mysteries wait, not scary or dangerous, just patient, like puzzles waiting for curious minds to ask the right questions. And perhaps someday, someone like you will find the missing pieces that turn these oddities into answers. When you think of the moon, you might imagine it as silent, calm, and perfectly still, a quiet neighbor drifting through space. But deep inside, the moon is not as silent as it seems. Long ago, when astronauts first visited, they left behind special instruments that could listen for tiny rumbles beneath the surface. What they discovered surprised even the scientists back home. They found that the moon can shake, tremble, and even ring like a bell. It all started during the Apollo missions in the late 1960s and early 1970s, as brave astronauts walked on the dusty surface and collected rocks. They also placed seismometers, sensitive machines that measure vibrations in the ground. On Earth, these tools help us study earthquakes. On the moon, they were meant to listen for moonquakes, tiny tremors that might reveal what was happening deep below the crust. No one expected what they found. When the astronauts set off small explosions, or when parts of their spacecraft crashed back onto the moon's surface on purpose, the seismometers picked up the vibrations. But instead of stopping quickly, like an earthquake on Earth, the shaking went on and on. The moon did not just shudder and settle down, it kept vibrating for up to an hour, sometimes even longer. It was as if the moon rang like a giant bell, struck by a hammer, the vibrations echoing through its rocky layers. Why does this happen? On Earth, an earthquake's energy is quickly absorbed because our planet has water and a thick broken crust that soaks up the shaking. But the moon is dry, and its crust is much more rigid. There is no water to help the rocks slide and settle. So when the moon gets hit or shakes, the energy bounces around inside it like sound waves in a metal bell, slowly fading away instead of stopping all at once. Over the years, the Apollo seismometers picked up 4 different types of moonquakes. There are tiny, constant tremors caused by meteoroids, small space rocks that strike the surface. There are also shallow quakes near the surface, which sometimes happen when the moon's crust shifts just a little. Then there are thermal quakes, which occur when the surface heats up during lunar sunrise and cools down at sunset, causing the ground to crack and shift. But perhaps the most mysterious are the deep moonquakes. These come from hundreds of miles beneath the surface. They do not happen at random, but instead follow a strange pattern linked to the pull of Earth's gravity. Just like the moon's gravity moves our ocean tides, Earth's gravity pulls at the moon's insides, stretching and squeezing it as it orbits around us. This tug of war sets off deep tremors that ring through the moon's core and crust. These deep quakes are not very strong compared to big earthquakes on Earth, but they tell scientists something important. The moon's inside is not completely dead. It still shifts and changes, even after billions of years. Studying these vibrations helps us learn what the moon is made of, layer by layer. It is like using an X-ray to see inside a bone, except instead of light, we use sound waves and shakes. So what about the far side? The Apollo missions never went there, so we do not have seismometers sitting on that hidden half. But scientists believe that the far side has its own share of moonquakes and tremors. It may even be more active in some places because of the thicker crust and older battered surface. Tiny impacts from meteoroids hit both sides of the moon all the time, and the far side's rugged terrain suggests it has absorbed countless blows over its long life. Future missions hope to place new seismometers on the far side to listen for these hidden rumbles. If we can measure how the far side shakes, we might learn why its crust is thicker and why strange anomalies hide under its surface. We could find out whether lava tubes and ancient tunnels still shift, or whether deep quakes hint at mysteries buried far below. Some scientists even hope that studying the moon's vibrations could teach us more about how Earth's own core and crust formed. The idea that the moon rings like a bell has captured people's imaginations ever since those first Apollo experiments. Of course, it does not make a sound you could hear with your ears. There is no air to carry sound on the moon, but if you could listen with special instruments, you would hear the deep hum of a world still telling its story in vibrations and echoes. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, imagine those soft tremors far beneath the moon's dusty surface. Picture tiny impacts sending ripples through the ancient rock. Think of the moon ringing quietly in the dark, like a bell that never fully stops singing its song. And remember, even in the silence of space, there are hidden voices waiting for someone to listen. Maybe one day, a new generation of explorers will place their ears to the far side's ground and hear its secrets for the very first time. Alien bases and UFO whispers. Alien bases and UFO whispers. And Nefid Stan, Basie, alien bases. When you look up at the moon on a clear night, it feels comforting and familiar. It has been there since long before the first humans walked the earth. For thousands of years, it has been a friend in the sky, guiding sailors, inspiring poets, and lighting up our dreams. But no matter how much we learn about the moon, there is one thing that never seems to fade: our love for a good mystery. And when it comes to the far side, people's imaginations have run wild with tales of hidden alien bases and strange UFOs. It is easy to see why. After all, the far side of the moon is the perfect place to hide secrets. For millions of years, it has turned its back to Earth, keeping half of its face in permanent shadow from our eyes. Even now, no one has set foot there. We have only seen its craters through robotic eyes and satellite cameras. For storytellers, this hidden half became the perfect blank page for ideas that dance on the line between truth and fantasy. Some people say that if aliens ever wanted to watch us, the far side would be the perfect spot for their secret base. Safe from our telescopes, tucked away behind thousands of miles of rock, they could peek out and study our world like scientists studying animals in the wild. They might send tiny probes down to Earth, gather samples, or listen to our broadcasts floating through space. All the while, they would stay hidden behind the moon's silent shield. Stories about aliens on the moon go back decades. In the 1960s and 70s, when the space race was at its peak, UFO tales were everywhere. Some people claimed that NASA astronauts saw lights or strange structures during their missions, but kept them secret. Of course, the Apollo astronauts always said they saw nothing but rocks, dust, and the beauty of our lonely satellite. But the stories grew anyway, passed around like campfire tales under the stars. In these stories, people imagine huge alien cities buried deep inside ancient craters, complete with tunnels, towers, and ships ready to fly at a moment's notice. Some even say these bases have been there for millions of years, long before humans ever wondered what was up there. Others believe secret governments on Earth know all about these visitors and are hiding the truth from the rest of us. It might sound silly, but these ideas have inspired countless books, movies, and TV shows. From black and white sci-fi classics to modern blockbusters, the moon is often shown as more than just rock and dust. It becomes a place where aliens wait, where astronauts stumble upon secrets too big to share, or where ancient beings once lived before moving on to other stars. These tales remind us that even when we shine our brightest lights on the darkness, our imaginations always find places to play. In real life, scientists have not found any signs of alien cities or hidden UFO hangars on the moon's far side. The missions that have mapped the surface and taken samples found craters, rocks, and evidence of a long, dramatic history shaped by impacts and ancient lava flows, but no alien doorways. Yet the mystery lives on because sometimes it is fun to believe there might still be something magical or otherworldly just out of sight. And maybe these stories serve another purpose too. They show how much we want to feel like we are not alone in the universe. The moon is our closest neighbor in the sky. It feels like a stepping stone to the stars, a place where our questions about life beyond Earth naturally gather. When we imagine aliens hiding just behind that quiet lunar horizon, it is really our own curiosity peeking through, our need to wonder if someone, somewhere, is watching back. So tonight, as you look up at the moon and see its familiar face shining down, let your mind drift for a moment to that hidden side turned forever away. Picture wide craters bathed in darkness, strange shapes you might half see in the shadows, or silver ships gliding soundlessly across the surface. Imagine what it would feel like to be the first person to set foot there, to stand on that ancient ground and see the universe with new eyes. Of course, tomorrow's scientists will keep studying the moon with tools, robots, and questions grounded in fact. They will keep searching for answers in the rocks and soil, hoping to learn more about our own history. But tonight, it is okay to let your dreams drift a little further, to the far side where the moon's secrets and our wildest stories mix together under the stars. After all, sometimes the best mysteries are the ones that keep us wondering, and maybe in that quiet place, the moon itself is smiling back, keeping its secrets safe until we are ready to find them or to dream them up all over again. So tonight, as you look up at the moon and see its familiar face shining down, let your mind drift for a moment to that hidden side turned forever away. Picture wide craters bathed in darkness, strange shapes you might half see in the shadows, or silver ships gliding soundlessly across the surface. Imagine what it would feel like to be the first person to set foot there, to stand on that ancient ground and see the universe with new eyes. Of course, tomorrow's scientist will keep studying the moon with tools, robots, and questions grounded in fact. They will keep searching for answers in the rocks and soil, hoping to learn more about our own history. But tonight, it is okay to let your dreams drift a little further to the far side where the moon's secrets and our wildest stories mix together under the stars. After all, sometimes the best mysteries are the ones that keep us wondering, and maybe in that quiet place, the moon itself is smiling back, keeping its secrets safe until we are ready to find them or to dream them up all over again. Secret missions and Cold War rumors are pour to war. When people look back on the history of space exploration, they often picture heroic astronauts, shiny rockets blasting off, and crowds cheering for every mission to the moon. But hidden under all the bright headlines was another side to the story, a side full of whispers, secret plans, and curious fears about what might be happening just out of sight. Nowhere did these secrets grow bigger than on the far side of the moon. During the Cold War, two powerful nations, the United States and the Soviet Union, were locked in a quiet struggle. They did not fight each other directly on battlefields, but competed for power, pride, and technology. And space became their biggest stage. Whoever could launch the first satellite, the first astronaut, or the first mission to the moon could show the world they were the strongest and smartest. But while the world watched the public launches and parades, both sides were also thinking about what else the moon could be used for, especially its hidden half. You see, the far side of the moon is like a secret backyard. It always faces away from Earth, shielded by the moon's own body. This makes it the perfect place to hide things, at least in the minds of some people during the Cold War. Old stories tell of secret military bases imagined deep inside craters, hidden from the eyes of any Earth-bound telescope. Some people believed both the Soviets and the Americans dreamed of building radar stations or giant antennas to spy on each other, far away from prying eyes. One rumor from the 1960s claimed that the United States once considered placing nuclear missiles on the moon, weapons that could be aimed back at Earth from space. The idea sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but documents later showed that scientists did talk about it, at least as a thought experiment. They wanted to know what was possible if the worst ever happened. In the end, the idea was too costly and too dangerous, but the rumors stuck, feeding fears that the far side might become a secret military outpost. There were also whispers about spy satellites using the moon's far side to slip out of sight. Imagine a spacecraft orbiting the moon, dipping behind it just long enough to test new cameras or radio equipment away from other countries' radars. In those days, technology was new and changing fast. People feared that their enemies might find clever ways to hide their secrets just beyond the moon's shadow. The Soviet Union had its own hush-hush projects too. Some old reports suggest that they looked into building lunar bases not just for science, but also to claim territory, a bold symbol that they could plant a flag on the moon and keep it. Officially, the Soviets said they wanted to explore for peaceful reasons, just like the Americans did. But behind closed doors, engineers and generals wondered if the far side could offer an edge in the Cold War chess game. None of these secret plans came true. Building a base on the moon, especially on the far side, was far too hard in the 1960s and 70s. Rockets were expensive. Technology was still too young. Astronauts were brave, but they did not have the life support systems or tools to dig deep tunnels or survive in permanent shadows. In the end, the far side stayed empty. No hidden missile bunkers, no secret antennas humming in the dark. Still, these rumors have a way of living on. They remind us how, when people do not know what is really happening, they fill the silence with their biggest hopes or fears. The moon's far side, unseen and unreachable, was the perfect canvas for these hidden stories. It was a place where anything might be happening just out of view, whether it was alien visitors or secret Cold War missions. Over time, we learned more. Satellites mapped the entire moon in detail. Cameras peered into every crater. Rovers crawled across its plains. Each new mission showed that the far side holds ancient rocks, deep scars, and cosmic mysteries, but no hidden bunkers or spy stations. The real secrets turned out to be geological ones, written in stone instead of steel. Even so, These old stories still make people smile and wonder. They remind us that the unknown is powerful. It sparks our imagination and makes us dream up all kinds of adventures, even if they never really happened. Maybe that is one reason we keep looking up at the moon, asking questions about what might be hiding just beyond the light. So tonight, as you snuggle into bed and the moon shines outside your window, think of that far side turned away in gentle silence. Imagine all the rumors and Cold War whispers drifting through the dark like old radio signals, long gone but never quite forgotten. The moon kept its real secrets and gave us something even better, the reminder that there will always be more to discover, if only we are brave enough to look past the shadows and listen to what the silence has to say. Science versus fantasy. Fantasy. The far side of the moon has always been a place where facts and dreams meet in the shadows. For generations, people have spun stories about what might be hiding there: secret alien bases, ancient cities, or strange creatures watching us from just out of sight. These tales grew in the quiet places where real science could not yet reach. But now, thanks to careful missions and brave robots, we know much more than we used to. So, what is the truth? Is there something truly hidden on the moon's far side? For all the legends and whispers, there is no sign of alien ships or secret civilizations on the far side or anywhere else on the moon. Probes and orbiters have mapped every crater, mountain, and plain in fine detail. Landers have touched down and sent back close-up pictures of rocks and dust that have been sitting there for billions of years. Rovers like China's Chang'e 4 Jade Rabbit have rolled across the rugged ground, measuring soil, testing radiation, and peeking beneath the surface with radar. All they found were rocks, ancient scars from impacts, and a few surprises in the soil's minerals, but no doorways to hidden bunkers or underground cities. Does that mean the far side is boring? Not at all. In fact, once the myths are set aside, the real story is even more amazing. The far side remains one of the most fascinating places for serious scientists. Why? Because even though we have no aliens waving hello, we do have real mysteries that hold clues about the moon's past and maybe even about Earth's early days too. One of the biggest puzzles is why the moon looks so different on each side. The side we see every night has large dark plains called Maria, formed long ago by ancient lava flows that filled giant impact basins. But the far side is rougher, thicker, and covered with tall highlands and countless craters. Scientists want to know why the lava did not flow the same way on both sides. Did the Earth's heat help soften the crust on the side that always faces us? Did huge impacts on the far side punch deeper into the moon's layers, pulling up materials from places we still do not fully understand? Then there are the strange magnetic swirls and the hidden lumps of extra mass under the surface. These gravity anomalies pull at orbiting spacecraft, making their paths shift in tiny but measurable ways. What are they made of? How did they form? Could they be pieces of ancient asteroids buried deep in the crust, or hints that the moon's insides hold secrets about how rocky worlds like ours come together? The far side is also a treasure for astronomers looking far beyond the moon. Shielded from Earth's constant buzz of radio signals, the far side is the quietest nearby place to listen to the whispers of the universe. It is a perfect spot for radio telescopes that might someday catch the faint echoes of the first stars and galaxies forming after the Big Bang, a time we still know so little about. In that silence, scientists might find answers about how the universe grew from darkness into light. There is more. Some shadowed craters near the moon's poles, many of them on the far side, hold pockets of frozen water. Ice, a resource so simple yet so precious. If humans ever build bases there, they could melt this ice for drinking water, turn it into oxygen to breathe, and even split it into rocket fuel to travel farther. That is not fantasy. It is real science, and researchers from NASA, China, and other countries are already planning missions to test how much ice is there and how we might use it. Even the moon's deep rumbles, the moonquakes that made it ring like a bell when Apollo seismometers listened, still hold secrets. Scientists hope future missions will place new instruments on the far side to listen for these vibrations, mapping what lies under the crust and mantle layer by layer. Each small tremor might be a clue, helping us see what is hidden in the moon's depths. So tonight, when you hear wild stories about secret alien outposts or hidden UFO hangars on the far side, remember that the truth is different, but no less wonderful. The moon's real secrets are older and bigger than any legend. They tell us about fire and ice, about giant impacts and quiet shadows, about how planets and moons grow and change over billions of years. And maybe that is the best kind of mystery. Not a monster waiting in the dark, but a story written in rock and dust, waiting for curious minds to read it. One day, people might live and work on the far side, sleeping under lava tube ceilings, or peering through giant telescopes that catch the first light of distant stars. They will stand where humans have never stood before, turning myths into knowledge and questions into answers. So close your eyes tonight and picture the far side's craters, mountains, and shadowed ice. No aliens needed, just the quiet wonder of a place that still has so much to teach us. The moon's hidden face is real, patient, and full of secrets that remind us how beautiful it is to keep exploring. As you lie in bed tonight and picture the far side of the moon, remember this: its story is far from over. In fact, it might be just beginning. For all the centuries that people have looked up at the moon and dreamed of what it hides, we have only just started to explore its secrets in person. Now, a new chapter is taking shape, one where astronauts, scientists, and even private companies are working together to go back to the moon, to stay longer, and to finally unlock the mysteries of its hidden side. One of the biggest steps forward is NASA's Artemis program. Artemis is named after the twin sister of Apollo, the Greek goddess of the moon and the hunt. It is a fitting name because this time the goal is not just to send a few people to take samples and come home, but to build a bridge for longer stays and bigger discoveries. Artemis plans to land the next astronauts on the moon's South Pole region, a place where some parts of the far side meet the near side, near giant shadowed craters that may hold ancient ice. That ice is more than just frozen water. It is a key that could open the door to living and working on the moon for weeks or months at a time. With ice, astronauts can have drinking water, oxygen to breathe, and even the ingredients for rocket fuel. The Artemis missions will test new equipment to find, collect, and use that ice. They will set up small science stations and practice the skills we will need if humans are to explore the far side properly. Where the land is rougher, the shadows are deeper, and the secrets are older. But NASA is not the only one dreaming about this next era. Private companies are also joining in, bringing fresh ideas and new technology. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others are building rockets, landers, and habitats that could help carry people and cargo back and forth. Some even imagine reusable lunar delivery trucks, robotic craft that bring supplies to bases, move ice and minerals, or help set up telescopes on the far side's radio-quiet plains. Why does the far side matter so much in these new dreams? One reason is that it remains one of the best places nearby for looking into deep space. The far side is shielded from Earth's constant radio chatter, which makes it the perfect natural observatory. Future missions may carry the parts for huge radio telescopes, which could be lowered into deep craters or spread across ancient plains. In that silence, they could listen for faint signals from the earliest stars and galaxies, helping us understand how the universe woke up from darkness. There is also hope for new lunar bases hidden inside ancient lava tubes, tunnels carved out by flowing lava billions of years ago. These natural shelters could protect astronauts from harsh solar radiation and tiny meteoroids that constantly hit the moon's surface. Some plans imagine setting up inflatable habitats inside these caves with power from solar panels on the ridges above. A base like this could be a stepping stone for longer missions that push deeper into the far side's rugged highlands and mysterious craters. China, too, is working on its next steps. After the success of Chang'e 4, China has announced more missions that will study the moon's geology, hunt for water ice, and test technology for a future lunar research station. There is even talk of building a base together with other countries, sharing the cost, the skills, and the discoveries. All these plans share the same quiet hope that by working together, nations, scientists, and private explorers, we can finally peel back the moon's hidden layers. Each drill into frozen soil, each sample from an ancient crater, each signal caught in the radio quiet will bring us closer to understanding how our nearest neighbor was born and how it has shaped our own planet's story. One day, people may live on the moon for weeks or months at a time. They might stand on the far side and look back at Earth, seeing our blue world peeking over the edge of a crater. They might work under the shadows of ancient cliffs, using tools to study rocks that remember a time before life began here. Maybe they will plant small greenhouses inside lava tubes, growing fresh food in places that have never known life. Maybe they will fall asleep under a thick shield of rock, safe from radiation, dreaming of what tomorrow's research might find. So tonight, as you drift into dreams, picture the far side waiting patiently for its next visitors. Imagine the hum of rockets, the crunch of boots on ancient dust, and the soft hum of new science stations waking up in the shadows. The moon's hidden face still has stories to tell, and soon a new generation of explorers will be there to listen, step by careful step, turning our biggest questions into answers that light up the dark. If you stand outside on a clear night and look up at the moon, it is easy to see it as just a bright light in the sky. Maybe it feels like an old friend, always there to guide sailors, watch over dreamers, and light up dark roads. But that gentle glow hides a much bigger story, one that stretches far back in time to when the Earth and Moon were both young and the solar system was a place of chaos and change. The far side of the moon holds clues that help us understand that story and remind us why this hidden half matters so much. For one thing, the far side can teach us how the moon was born. Most scientists believe that long ago, more than 4 billion years ago, a giant object about the size of Mars crashed into the early Earth. The impact was so huge that it blasted a massive cloud of rock and dust into space. Over time, that material came together and formed our moon. It was a violent beginning, a collision that shaped not just our moon, but our planet's future, too. But how do we know this really happened? Part of the answer is hidden in the moon's rocks, its ancient scars, and the layers buried beneath its surface. The near side and the far side are like 2 pages from the same old book, but the far side's page has not been touched as much by lava flows that smoothed out the near side's big basins. On the far side, the thicker crust and rugged highlands preserve a record of the impacts that battered the moon after it formed. By studying the rocks there, scientists hope to understand what pieces of Earth and the impactor mixed together, and how those pieces cooled and settled into the moon we see today. The far side can also tell us about Earth's early history. Our own planet does not have many rocks that old. Wind, rain, oceans, and shifting continents have erased most of the scars left by ancient impacts. But the moon does not have those forces. It has no air, no flowing water, no earthquakes that erase the past. Its surface is like a giant time capsule, especially on the far side, where fewer volcanic plains have covered things up. The craters and basins there remember what Earth might have looked like when giant asteroids and comets were still crashing down. Some scientists even believe that studying these impacts could help explain how life began by showing us how water and important elements might have come to Earth on icy comets. The far side also holds secrets about the solar system's violent past. Everywhere you look, there are craters, some small as a house, others wide enough to hold entire cities or even countries. One of the largest, the South Pole Aitken Basin, is one of the biggest known impact craters in our solar system. It was carved out by a massive collision that dug deep into the moon's crust, scattering pieces of rock from far below up to the surface. By studying this basin and others like it, scientists hope to learn how impacts shape rocky worlds and how those worlds recover or do not over billions of years. There is more too. The far side's radio quiet helps us listen for the oldest signals in the universe, the echoes from when the first stars and galaxies formed. Those whispers can teach us how the universe grew from a cloud of gas and dust into the countless galaxies, stars, and planets we see today. If we can build radio telescopes on the far side, we might one day hear the very first light of the cosmos, something that is impossible to catch from Earth's noisy surface. All of this matters because when we learn about the moon, we also learn about ourselves. We learn where our planet came from and how it changed. We learn how to protect our world from the kinds of impacts that still happen in space. We even learn how to live and work far from home, a skill that will help us explore Mars and maybe even other worlds one day. So when you hear people wonder why we still study the moon after all these years, remember the far side. It is more than just craters and dust. It is a place where the past is written in rock, where every scar tells a story about fire and ice, collisions and calm, beginnings and survival. It is a place that reminds us that our home in the universe is not just Earth, but all the worlds that circle our sun together. As you drift off to sleep tonight, picture the far side waiting under its blanket of stars, patient, silent, and full of answers. We are still learning how to hear. Maybe the moon's greatest gift is that it keeps us curious, teaching us that sometimes the best way to understand our own place in the cosmos is to look up and keep asking, what happened here, and what does it mean for us? And in that simple question lies the reason why it matters, now and always. Every night, no matter where you are in the world, if you look up at the sky, you will find the moon waiting for you. Sometimes it is big and round, glowing like a lantern in the darkness. Sometimes it is just a sliver, a thin smile hanging over the rooftops or the trees. It does not matter if you live in a bustling city, deep in the countryside, or on a tiny island surrounded by ocean waves. The moon is always there, our quiet neighbor and our silent guardian. For thousands of years, people have looked up at the moon and found comfort in its steady light. It does not shout or demand our attention. It does not change its path for kings, wars, or storms. It simply moves through its phases, reminding us that time flows in gentle cycles. Farmers once planted their seeds by its phases. Poets wrote verses under its glow. Sailors set their course by its position in the night sky. Children still press their noses to the window just to catch a glimpse before they drift off to sleep. Yet, for all its gentle beauty, the moon is so much more than a lovely shape above our heads. It is a true guardian in ways we often forget. Long ago, when Earth was young, the moon formed from the debris of a violent collision. Since then, its pull has helped keep our planet steady. Without the moon, Earth might wobble wildly on its axis. Seasons could shift in ways that would make life much harder to survive. The moon's quiet gravity helps hold our world in balance, like a loyal friend standing at our side. But perhaps its greatest gift is what it does for our minds. The moon keeps us curious. For centuries we wondered what it was: a god, a goddess, a lamp lit by spirits. We dreamed of rabbits and dragons living on its surface. We told stories of people banished there, alone in the endless dark. We asked questions that seemed impossible to answer. How did it get there? What lies on the side we cannot see? Does it change, or does it just wait for us to come closer? Over time, science gave us many of the answers. We learned that the moon is a rocky sphere, covered in craters and plains of hardened lava. We sent missions that brought back pieces of its surface, pale, dusty rocks that hold the secrets of our solar system's violent youth. Astronauts left footprints that will stay there for millions of years. And still, we ask more questions. The far side, turned forever away from our gaze, reminds us that even when we think we know something well, there is always more to learn. Half of the moon is always in light. The other half stays in shadow, facing the stars alone. That hidden side keeps us humble. It tells us that the universe is bigger than any map we can draw or any story we can tell. Even the nearest places can hold mysteries that wait for the right dreamer, the right scientist, the right question. That is how the moon teaches us to keep exploring, gently, quietly, always there, but never giving up all its secrets at once. And perhaps that is the real reason we love it so much. The moon is a mirror for us. It shows us our smallness against the vastness of the night sky, but it also shows us our courage to reach for more. It reminds us that we are part of something grand, a story written in dust and stone, sunlight and shadow, craters and stars. And one day, people will walk on the far side, stand in ancient craters, and listen to the moon's deep silence. They will study its hidden ice, its lava tubes, its buried secrets. They will look up at Earth, a blue marble rising over a horizon no human eyes have ever seen in person, and they will feel, deep in their hearts, that they are home both here and there, under the same sky that has always watched over us. So tonight, as you lie in bed, think of the moon shining softly through your window. Imagine the half you know so well, and the half that still waits in the shadows. Know that in its quiet way, it holds our past and our future, our stories and our questions. The moon is our silent guardian, patient, steady, and always reminding us to wonder what else might be waiting, just out of sight, for the next curious soul who dares to look up and ask why. Drifting back home. Drifting back home. Dear friend, when you look up at the moon, it can feel so far away. Hanging there in the sky, drifting through space, silent and untouchable. But the truth is, the moon is never really that far. It pulls at our oceans, guiding the tides. It steadies our earth, keeping our seasons in check. And in quiet ways, it pulls at our hearts too, always reminding us that no matter how distant something seems, we are all connected in ways we may not always see. The far side of the moon, the half that never shows its face to us, makes this feeling even stronger. For centuries, people wondered what was back there, hidden from our view. They spun tales of lost cities, secret creatures, and ancient gods. When we finally sent spacecraft to take pictures, the truth was simpler, but no less wondrous. An ancient, rugged landscape full of craters, mountains, and valleys that have held the memories of the universe for billions of years. Even now, with all our knowledge and technology, the far side keeps a certain magic. It reminds us that there are always parts of life we do not see, mysteries that wait quietly behind what we know. But knowing the far side exists does not make the moon feel more distant. Somehow it makes it feel closer, like a friend who still has more stories to tell. Think of how many times you have looked up at the moon when you needed comfort. Maybe you were standing outside at night, the world quiet around you, feeling small under the stars. Maybe you were far from home, missing someone you loved, and the moon made you feel less alone. The same light that shines down on you has shone down on people for thousands of years. Parents tucking their children into bed, travelers on long journeys, farmers working in moonlit fields. The moon's glow reminds us that we share this world and its wonders together. The moon's hidden face is part of that gift. It holds the stories of the universe's early days, the history of our own Earth, and the future adventures of the people who will one day stand in those shadows. Yet even when it is out of sight, it is still there, circling us night after night, a quiet guardian in the dark. You may never see its far side with your own eyes, but you are connected to it just the same. Every wave that rolls onto the shore, every shifting tide in a harbor, every beam of moonlight that lights up your room, they remind you that we are part of something bigger. This sense of connection stretches far beyond science. It touches something deep inside us, the part that wants to know and understand, the part that dreams and wonders. When we think about the moon's far side, we are not just talking about rocks and craters. We are talking about curiosity, about the courage to ask what else is out there, about the hope that there is always more to learn. Soon, people will go back to the moon. They will stand on new ground, maybe even on that hidden side, looking back at Earth rising like a jewel above a distant horizon. They will see our whole world at once, every ocean, every mountain, every person. They will know what we sometimes forget, that we are all together on this tiny blue planet, held in place by the quiet pull of the moon. And when they come home, they will bring back new stories. They will remind us that distance is not the same as separation. They will show us that what feels far away can be closer than we think, woven into our lives by gravity, memory, and the timeless pull of wonder. So tonight, as you close your eyes, picture the moon above you. Think of its gentle glow washing over rooftops and treetops, fields and rivers, mountains and oceans. Remember that behind the bright side you see is another side you do not, a side that keeps secrets, not to hide them forever, but to remind you that there is always more to discover. Let that thought carry you as you drift towards sleep. Feel the quiet comfort of knowing the moon is never really far. Its light will keep shining, its shadows will keep waiting, and its pull will always bring you back home, to the place where curiosity, courage, and connection light up even the darkest corners of the night. And now, dear dreamer, we've come to the end of our gentle journey around the moon, the face we know so well, and the hidden side that keeps its secrets tucked away in ancient shadows. Tonight, as you settle deeper into your blanket and feel your eyelids grow heavy, let's take a last soft look back at that silvery companion shining high above us. For as long as people have looked up at the night sky, the moon has been a guide, a light, and a quiet reminder that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. When we see its bright side, we see what has been there for every poet, every sailor, every child who ever wondered what lies beyond. But now you know there is so much more, a hidden half, rugged and wild, covered in old scars and new dreams. It is proof that even the most familiar things can hold mysteries, if only we remember to look deeper. Think of how many times you have looked up at the moon when you needed to feel less alone. Maybe you were far from home or missing someone you loved. Maybe you were simply standing in your yard, listening to the night sounds and letting the moon's soft light wash over you. In those moments, it did not matter that half the moon was turned away. You felt its pull just the same, a gentle guardian floating silently through the sky. That is the magic of the moon's secret half. It reminds us that wonder does not always come from what we can see. Sometimes it comes from knowing that there is more, waiting in the quiet corners just out of view. The far side of the moon holds stories written in ancient rock, tales of the solar system's violent youth, of fiery impacts and frozen shadows, of lava tubes and hidden ice, of mysteries that science still works to understand. Each crater, each scar, each strange anomaly is a reminder that curiosity is our greatest gift. And as you drift off tonight, remember this too. The moon's far side may be hidden, but it is never truly out of reach. Every tide that rolls up a beach, every beam of moonlight that slips through your window, every story we tell about footprints in the lunar dust or rovers crawling over ancient plains, they all connect us to that quiet, shadowed face. One day, new explorers will stand there. They will look back at our blue earth hanging above the horizon like a dream. They will gather rocks that have waited billions of years to be touched. They will listen to the moon's deep hum and bring back answers to questions we have barely learned to ask. So, next time you see the moon high in the sky, take an extra moment to smile at its secret half. Know that its quiet pull is always with you, steady, patient, and full of hidden stories waiting for curious minds like yours. Let it remind you that you too can hold light and shadow, questions and dreams all at once. And now, before you close your eyes completely, I have a small, heartfelt favor to ask. If you've enjoyed this gentle ramble with the Snoozy Scientist tonight, please tap that like button. Subscribe to this cozy corner so you can join me again the next time we drift into another sleepy mystery. Leave a comment to tell me where you're listening from and what you wonder about most when you look up at the stars. Your voice is part of what keeps this tiny, dream-filled corner of the internet alive. May you rest easy tonight, wrapped in the moon's watchful glow. May your dreams drift far and wide, from the craters of the far side to the shores of tomorrow. And may you always keep a little spark of wonder glowing inside you, ready to light the way whenever you need to remember that some secrets are not hidden to be kept, but to remind us how beautiful it is to keep exploring. Good night, gentle dreamer. Sleep well under the moon's patient gaze, and when you wake, keep wondering. The universe is waiting.